Thanks for coming back to this week's video. This is a new video for the new show, for our show.
For our show, not a new show.
How's your
Wiseworks podcast
weekend been? How's it been lately?
This week sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Maybe it was just stressful for Kenzie. Maybe it was just, I don't know. Maybe there was just a lot happening. Yeah. It wasn't terribly busy. It just felt like things were just falling apart, and they weren't actually falling apart.
This past week was Memorial Day.
Yeah, maybe it was just a weird weekend.
Holiday time.
Yeah. It was just strange. Let's kick off, though. Let's let the people know what we're talking about. We're talking today about Joe Rogan's Spotify deal and how that is going to affect smaller podcast shows.
Yeah.
So, let's get into it.
Okay, first thing.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, I like his podcast, and I listen to some of them, but I don't listen to it all the time.
The thing is with Joe Rogan, unless you're extremely loyal, you watch episodes by guests that you already know or like or are interested in. So there's going to be some guests for average viewers, which I think is the average viewer who's a little bit more of a fan than the super fans. Well, I would fall under that category. I probably watch 1 out of every 3 episodes he comes out with.
I'm a lot less than that, probably a couple times a month, I would say.
Okay.
I know he comes out with one basically every day, or like
4 days a week.
Yeah. But I don't listen to that often. So, but I would agree he has a great podcast. And he's one of the bigger podcasts that if you say podcast,
you're going to think Joe Rogan.
Well, I wouldn't automatically think Joe Rogan, but if you say like, oh, I love listening to podcasts, and you say Joe Rogan, people probably know what you're talking about.
Yeah, people know who he is.
A lot of, people, I don't listen to a lot of music. I listen to some, but not like a ton of music. More of like a podcast person. So I had someone ask me one time, what is the podcast you listen to? And I was just explaining some of them, and they didn't know most of them, but I was like, and I kind of listen to Joe Rogan sometimes.
Yeah.
They knew what that was. Of course they would. So,
so the biggest news at this point when this comes out, it's going to be about 2 weeks old or around. But the biggest news that is happening in the podcast world is that he has signed a deal that we don't know the exact numbers, but we do know, I believe it's been confirmed by a lot of different sources, that it is at least $100 million to take his YouTube and Apple podcast platforms, or at least the places that he's had his podcast on for years.
Which has kind of been exclusively YouTube.
Well, no, not exclusively. Apple Podcasts has been bigger. He has way more audio downloads than video views. YouTube has not been the number one thing. And YouTube,
I only watch him on YouTube.
Yeah, because we watch video content more than we listen to audio, probably. Yeah. But YouTube has just been a drop in the bucket from his total amount of downloads and, viewers and people who tune in to listen. He's going to be moving to exclusively Spotify. Spotify's opening a video element for him, so he still has the video show and he still has the audio show. But you're only going to find it on Spotify, and everyone knows that. If you don't know about that, then you probably don't keep up with the news about regarding podcast shows. But he is going to be exclusively on Spotify, which is still going to be free. You can pay for the premium version, but it is going to be free, just like it has been on YouTube with ads.
My first reaction when I heard this, I was like, I like this. not because he's leaving YouTube, but because I would say the thing I listen to most is Spotify. Like when it comes to audio content.
Yeah.
When it's video, it's going to be like YouTube or like Netflix, something like that.
Yeah.
But for audio exclusive, it's going to be Spotify. I'm not into Apple Podcast. I'm not into Apple Music, all that. Spotify. That's what I use. So from the beginning, I remember one time, like when I first learned about Joe Rogan, I looked up on Spotify Joe Rogan because I thought he was on Spotify. He was not. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know why they gave him the deal and why they knew this would be a good investment? Because Joe Rogan has been like the number one podcast searched in Spotify, and they keep track of that, and he's not there.
He's not.
So they know how many people are looking for him on Spotify, so they know that he would be a good investment to pour all kinds of money into.
Yeah, I mean, there's like podcasts that are reacting to his podcast, but not his podcast. So, yeah, it's a great investment for Spotify, and I'm not mad at it because I like Spotify.
Yeah, now I will say I don't use Spotify much. Of course I will. Here's the thing, a lot of people are having issues and saying, oh, he's a sellout, I'm not going to watch his show anymore, I'm not going to listen to his show, I don't listen to Spotify. He's not selling out. I don't care what you say. This is a great move for content creators, especially podcasters. Why is it such a great move? And we'll get into why it's such a good thing for small podcast shows as well, like ours. But I'm going to listen to a show on Spotify. It's still going to be free. It's literally a free app that you can just download. It's all the same things as YouTube pretty much, because there's still going to be video elements. There's still going to be ads that are being run just like on YouTube. And so I don't care. I think it's great because I'm a strong believer in competing capitalistic society, and YouTube has held a monopoly on the corner of the market for such a long time that I just think I think it's a great move because Spotify's going to give him more freedom. And the past year YouTube's been incredibly strict and tightening down the reins and treating people like they're employees of YouTube instead of content creators.
Yeah. I don't have a super strong opinion on that because I don't deal with it myself, but I like that he's coming to Spotify because it's something that I use on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like audio versions better than video when it comes to podcasts anyway. So I think this is a great deal. But how it's going to affect us as individuals, as people who kind of have like a podcast type show on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right now, we're exclusively YouTube.
We're looking to
expand
into the only audio world.
But right now, we're only YouTube.
Yeah,
we only have our stuff on YouTube.
At least the first, as of right now, I think this is going to be like episode 59 or 58. No. 58. This will be episode 58.
Yeah, 58. That's true.
And so up until now, we haven't got any of our episodes audio only on any platform. And so it's just been the YouTube video side of things. I do believe that Spotify is going to be a good investment for smaller channels and smaller creators, podcasters like us to get on that platform because they are already the number one audio platform in the world. Spotify already is. Mm-hmm. And so when you think podcast, people are like, okay, there's a lot more people listening than there are people watching podcasts. You know what I mean? We tend to just do the video because we're filmmakers and video is easy for us and it's an added element that I think just creates a good atmosphere and it creates a quality in the field. But
yeah, and also we do videos, so for us it's always just we graduated towards that, or we've gone towards that because of the video aspect of it.
Yeah,
so,
I think honestly that the move to Spotify, because YouTube's already the number one video platform in the world. They already are. They have been for a long time. They're the first ones that are out that created a real strong platform for video. And there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be loyal to YouTube throughout. It's going to be a whole battle. But honestly, Spotify is coming in and saying, we're not trying to take video from you, but we are going to be adding video elements to our platform. We're going to be number one in the world for audio, and we're going to give our creators freedom that YouTube doesn't give, you know?
Mm-hmm.
People are tuning in to listen to podcasts in more numbers than people are watching. So that's important. Getting into the idea of why we think, well, let me back up. Why do you think that this is such a good news that they're willing to pay that much money for someone like Joe Rogan to come on a platform? What does that do for the content creators as a whole and podcasters?
Well, it's like exclusivity, where you have like Netflix originals, you have Disney Plus originals, you have the shows or creators that are exclusively on certain platforms. I know something that happened not that long ago, that they're not podcast, but the Twitch streamer, well, he's known for Twitch streamer, Ninja.
Yeah.
He's like the most popular Twitch streamer. Like, I want to say it was like at the beginning of the year, maybe. I don't remember how long ago it was.
Yeah.
He came out and announced that some other app bought him out and it was going to pay him like so much money to basically get off of Twitch.
Yeah.
And everybody, like, Twitch started freaking out because, like, that's a huge... He was one of the biggest creators on that platform.
He brought Twitch a lot of attention.
So I think when it comes to, like, streaming in general, like streaming audio, streaming video, streaming in general, streaming movies, right now there's so many competing sources that if you have original content for your app, your device, or your streaming service, then it's going to bring attention. People come to see that exclusive content.
Yeah.
And people who love Joe Rogan because he's so popular, they're going to go to Spotify.
Exactly.
Even if they weren't in Spotify before, or if they were in Spotify and they watch a little bit of YouTube, that they like Joe Rogan, they'll exclusively kind of use Spotify more because they're going to be watching Joe Rogan on that.
Yeah.
So,
a big thing that I think that is going to be, that stands out to me from this whole deal is that Spotify and people that are competing with the popularity of Google, of Alphabet, the father of Google and YouTube, the father company, they are competing with this monster company and putting a higher value tag on content creators, on people who are self-started. Joe Rogan decided like 11 years ago that he's just like, okay, I want to do this podcast thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's just like, I'm going to do it. It sounds awesome. I think people will tune in for it.
Well, I don't know what came first because I don't know, like, exclusively Joe Rogan's background, but he does a lot of, he's an announcer for a lot of UFC, like MMA, like fighting type stuff. So I know he has that background.
He's been doing that for a long time.
So I don't know if that came before the podcast and he was like, I'm going to do a podcast too, or if he did the podcast and was like,
I'm not sure which one came first, but they definitely work hand in hand. Honestly, the podcast thing, he got inspired by a small handful of people who were doing podcast style content. And he came in and he's like, I want to do that. I want to expose people to interesting people and have cool conversations. I want to bring people into an awareness of the world and my perspective of things and have conversation that feels like a hangout and that you can learn and be educated by and entertained. And it's a beautiful concept and it's a beautiful thing that he's created. The biggest thing, though, is that he created it. It's that he had an idea, he did it. And now he is being signed into a deal in a little over a decade of work that he's been popular for years now, but now it's come to a head that a company is willing to pay him and his company that he's created himself, his small organization of the Joe Rogan Experience, more money than they're willing to drop on most films, unless it's going to be a blockbuster or TV shows.
Yeah.
And it's just him. and he's a self-starter. He did it himself. He owns all of his own equipment. Everything is.
I didn't look at the contract or like what it entailed. I haven't looked that deep into it. But is it the contract? Do you think it's like exclusively Joe Rogan? He can't make a podcast ever again without being on Spotify, or is it like in 5 years there's a contract, you stream on Spotify for like 5 years?
I don't know.
Is there a time limit on it?
I'm pretty sure there's a time limit on it. I haven't looked at it myself.
Yeah.
But I doubt anyone would sign a contract that says I can never do another episode except for on Spotify. I'm sure it's either a 5 or 10 year contract. Either way, the thing is, Joe Rogan's going to continue making as much, if not more money every episode than he already does. But he's also getting a flood of money poured in at the upfront of this deal, you know?
Yeah.
$100 million or more. We don't know the exact amount. So,
well, I mean,
it's not that much for the life of the contract, and that's all he makes. No, indeed not. It's there. He's still going to be making money every single podcast he does.
He is exclusively. Yes. You know that?
Yes,
okay,
for sure. Because they're going to be they're still going to be running ads. They're still going to be running. It's not.
But is that going to go Joe Rogan? Because I know there's YouTubers that say they're going to make content for like this X amount of time, and people, they're going to pay for their content that they're going to create, and they get rights to it, but they get a flat fee out front. So you think they're going to pay him each episode on top of his flat fee to go exclusively to Spotify?
That's what I've heard people say.
Okay.
And honestly, if it was, I would say it would be a bad deal if it was he only made $100 million and then he had to stream for basically free all of his next episodes for the next 5 to 10 years. Because
we
he
don't
works.
know it's 5 to 10 years. It's just
we don't know, but I'm sure it's a time limit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either way, that I feel like that would be a bad deal. He's worth a lot of money, and you know, Spotify's stock and their company's worth went up somewhere between $1 billion to $5 billion. Everyone's skepticizing about how much it actually is, but everyone's saying it's somewhere in the billions of dollars that Spotify has gotten in the past, well, between when they announced and 3 days later, Spotify's stock and their company's worth went up in a few billions of dollars more than they were. And so they're paying Joe Rogan a small chunk of that to make their company worth a lot more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, no, I believe from what I've heard that it's not a flat fee. It's not Joe Rogan can't make any money except for the initial agreed upon amount, you know? Because still that's going to be taxed. He's probably going to, the government's going to take half of it, honestly. And so
more,
it's not,
no.
Probably more than that.
It's more, yeah.
Yeah, but still it's a chunk of money, but you know, they accounted for that, and that's why it's such a big number, because it's not just going to be a flat, you know, $100 million. It's going to be more than that. In each episode, he's going to be making more. If not, then why would he sign a contract? Why would he still be making, you know, 4 videos a week? He's still going in to hustle. He's built himself a net worth that's very high. Yeah. And so someone who lives in that's going to live in the fruits of their labor, you know?
Go back to, you were talking about the stock or the Spotify like worth, it went up. Now, I'm going to say this before I say what I'm going to say. This is not my words. I heard someone else say this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it went up exclusively because of them saying Joe Rogan is coming to our content exclusively to Spotify, or do you think their revenue went up because they coincidentally announced that they were going to do video, adding video to their app? So
yeah,
they're adding video, and that's what brought up the stocks, not as much Joe Rogan.
But it was a business plan to put Joe Rogan at the front of that spear that's flying into the Spotify.
It's great, just great marketing and just great like advertising, and
it's just good timing.
Yeah. So they definitely. I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know this for sure, that for a decent amount of time they've been talking to Joe Rogan about
Yeah.
coming to Spotify, like a couple years or a year or so. They've been working on this
maybe.
deal, and they're like, we're gonna announce it on this date at this time because we're also gonna announce the video content that's gonna come out. So they definitely probably announced them at the same time when
For a reason.
yeah, one probably was before the other. They probably decided they were going to do video or got his contract signed. I don't think they just matched up perfectly.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a good business plan to announce them together.
So us talking about all this, what it's bringing to Joe Rogan, what it's bringing to the company, what is the final thought? How does that affect me and you? You know, I heard this one thing that Joe Rogan stayed off of intentionally Spotify for years. And so none of his stuff was on Spotify. Now, Spotify wants him on their platform, and they're willing to pay him top dollar to do that. Whereas if other podcasts are already on there, they're not willing to pay as much because they already have them. You know what I mean? Unless they're big and then they threaten to leave. But, I mean, threatening is never really a great tactic, even though it's used every day. But what does that mean for podcasts like us? What do you think it means?
I'm not sure. I mean, right now, for our content, we have video content, we have a YouTube channel. That's exclusively what I'm thinking of when it comes to our Wise Works content.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now, we're at a stage that we're smaller. We haven't made it like that big yet, and YouTube is such the Wild West for smaller creators, for people that are trying to make a name for themselves or do something. We're using YouTube as a tool. We wouldn't say we're YouTubers, but there's a lot of people that exclusively say YouTubers, social media people. So,
I mean, I'm sure people are going to look at us on this channel and say, oh, they're YouTubers. They just do a podcast show on YouTube, but they're still YouTubers. They're still creating content for YouTubers.
Yeah, so for us, I think we're still a little bit smaller to say, like, we're still trying to figure things out and do just create a name for ourselves, create a company. Yeah. And so how it's going to affect us because of Joe Rogan, I'm not sure. I mean, he's such a big name compared to like a smaller creator like us that I don't think it's going to affect us that much because we're on a different playing field at this point.
It's not so much about what is it going to affect us.
Yeah.
What does it represent, however, for people like us who have hopes and aspirations and goals? This is the biggest thing I'm taking out of it. And I've listened to people like Joey Diaz, who's close friends with Joe Rogan, talk about this topic. The biggest thing that I've thought that Joe Rogan has taught me and how he's conducted his business throughout this process to get to where he is now is that he's always thought outside of the box as far as business goes.
Yeah.
He's intentionally kept himself a little bit more exclusive about where you can find his show. He's intentionally made a specific kind of show that people are tuning into to watch in the millions and millions and millions every month. And he's intentionally set his company in a position to be worth what they just got paid, you know?
Yeah.
And he's done that because he's thought outside the box. I personally, it's making me rethink about the whole idea of like, we start a podcast, get yourself out there on Spotify, on iTunes, on YouTube, and get yourself out there, just make everyone aware of you. Well, that could work. I guess it just depends on what your goal is, and it works for some people. But it makes me think, okay, what is a unique way that I don't see a lot of people thinking about that's going to add value to us as creators and to the company and the brand that we're creating for future, thinking ahead. Joe Rogan has been doing entertainment, being in the public eye for a long time through the shows he's been on, through the shows he's hosted, through the UFC stuff. He's been on there for a long time. He's in his 50s, and now he's seeing the greatest monetary success out of all those years of work has led up to. And he's thought outside the box, and he's gone to work every day with the same motivation, the same goal, and the same strategy to add value to himself and his brand to where now it's paying off.
Yeah.
He's played an extreme long game, and we don't even know where it's going to go from here. You know, I do not believe that this is the death of Joe Rogan. I think it's going to be.
Oh no, I don't either.
It's going to be. He's going to continue to grow, and he's going to continue to gain popularity because his show also is not going to is going to continue to be the same, but it's also not going to be regulated the way YouTube has regulated him for the past few years, where you can't show, you know, anything violent. He's a big hunter. He loves bow hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't been able to show like video when he's talking to another fellow hunter on his show. He hasn't been able to show video of them like taking down a deer because it's considered violent, and YouTube, it's against their policies to show that kind of stuff. And so Spotify's probably not going to regulate that. Spotify's going to be like, yeah, show it up there. Just put like a warning.
I mean, we'll
or
have to
something.
see. I don't know. They might.
If they're truly trying to be a competitor to YouTube, the platform itself, then they're going to have to give away some freedoms and just allow it to be what it's going to be, and let creators like Joe Rogan make the decision about what their show wants to be. And he said that they're going to give him freedom. It's still his show. He doesn't work for them. He's just going to be on their platform. So
we'll just have to see, I guess.
I think it gives us hope. I think it gives small podcasts hope, because this proved to the world that independent creators are worth something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're worth something. If you work hard and you build, you're worth something. Joe Rogan is evidence of that.
I mean, yeah, definitely.
All right, let's wrap it up.
So, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, if you have an opinion about this, I know everybody has an opinion about something. So, give us your opinion. We want to hear it.
Yeah. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. We really appreciate you guys letting us know you're here and being a part of the audience for this show that me and my brother bring you every week. A couple episodes every week.
Yep.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.